So let's come back to this side for a moment. And as I demonstrated over here on this page in the spread, we can easily paint to fill space. But we can also draw to fill and enhance space as well. So let's maybe take a look at doodling a little bit within the context of a piece like this. So I might want to give some of my shapes a little more solidity by enhancing them with doodling. So I can pick pretty much any space and any shape that I want to pick. And I can use marks or patterns to enhance the volume of that. Just dividing that shape up in different ways. This does not have to be complicated drawing. It can be very simple drawing. In fact, I think it's often better when it's really simple drawing. So I'm just making concentric circles and then dividing concentric circles. That's one way to handle that. Could color some of these in, but not others. So I wouldn't want to do all of these, right? That would start to really create a lot of volume and create a lot of different visual information, some of which could start to kind of become a little overwhelming to look at. If I think of these pages as a unified kind of idea, I don't necessarily want to compete with this much visual information. But it's nice to use drawing like this to lead your eye around a bit. So I could enhance this, but I could also enhance a shape like this. Maybe that's what I want to do. I don't have to draw symmetrically and evenly throughout the whole shape either. Maybe I just want to enhance half of this. And I could do that with just some dotted lines that come down. So I'm focused mostly on how far apart I'm making these rows and how straight I can make them, just as straight a vertical as I can. And I'm trying to keep somewhat even and consistent in terms of how long these little dashes are. Another thing I can do is once again add more shapes. So how do I know what to add or where? It's just kind of responding to the information that's already on the page. And something I can do also is fill in some of these if I want. So I don't like that scale. I wanted to extend it off the side, and that gives me the opportunity to use the color of my colored pencil as a fill. And it's a nice opportunity to see how the color that I get from this kind of drawing contrasts with the kind of color that I get from painting. There's also a question of value. And what I mean when I talk about a deep value or a dark value is if I were to take all the color out of this image, just desaturate everything, which parts of this drawing are going to show up the darkest and which parts are going to show up the lightest? The closer I get to black, the darker or deeper the value is said to be, and the closer I get to white, the lighter the value is said to be. So when you hear people talking about value, this is what they mean. And it's pretty easy to perceive changes in value when you're looking at a black and white value scale, but it becomes a little more challenging to perceive differences in value when you're looking at a color image. So, one of the beautiful things about lots of tech is that it's pretty easy to desaturate an image. You can take a quick photo of one of your own drawings if you feel like you're struggling with it, and you can start to evaluate the values in that drawing by looking at that desaturated photograph. Part of my decision making in doing this is that I don't like to have just one instance of something happening if I can help it. This is something that helps with composition. So if I just have this, your eye just goes right to this and maybe questions why it's there. If I repeat that visual element of that dark value somewhere else on the piece, it becomes more intentional looking, and your eye spends more time going between these two things than just resting on this one thing. So I like this, but I feel like we're kind of still stuck here. And one way to correct that or deal with that is to offset it with maybe another instance of this. But to me, it's more compelling and more interesting to have a slightly different instance of that happening. So I'm going to use the same strategy, but a different color on this area here. And I think that that is a more compelling way to handle that. So we're always dealing in different variables. What color, what material, what strategy with that material, pressing really hard and drawing really hard in this case, is my strategy. So if I apply that strategy to a different color or a different material, what happens? Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. I just have to kind of commit to the idea and the experiment and see what happens. So this starts to kind of work and make some sense, I think. We're using drawing in different ways. And I don't have to only use drawing to fill in shapes. I can also use drawing as a way to handle the space around things, the background, as it were. So this is a much lighter pressure. And I'm using a color that relates to the colors that I'm already using on this page, so I think it'll work. So you see we can start to kind of develop this a little bit. I think I want to take that sense of drawn development back over onto this side of things a little bit, and we'll start to wrap things up a bit.